Okay, I'm here with Jayson Jones, former Olympian and CPA and insurance extraordinaire. And Jayson, how long you been doing it, man?
Uh, I've been doing this for 12 years, but let me
12 years.
correct you, right? I got to correct you, brother. Listen, once an Olympian, always an Olympian. There's no former, right? So I'm always, I always have that status. They can't take it from me, just like my degrees. You know what I'm saying? Um, so I'm a two-time track and field Olympian, representing the country of Belize. I ran the 200 in 2000 in Sydney, Australia, in 2008 in Beijing. Um, I've been an accountant for this year is like 13 years.
Wow.
Been a life insurance agent for the last 4 years. So
Right. Right.
just been helping people, it's just a natural progression of helping people just kind of allowed me to evolve into all the disciplines that I have, under my belt right now.
So how did you grow up, man? And how did you end up being taken into taxes and insurance?
So, my father was in the Army. I was born and raised in Germany. I traveled a lot, and I lived in Korea. I lived in the suburbs of Chicago, but I ultimately graduated high school in Germany, Heidelberg, Germany. Graduated, went to Florida State. Didn't have an athletic scholarship. I actually walked onto the track team and earned a scholarship. And when I graduated and I went to the Olympics, it didn't turn out so well as far as me going to race in Sydney. And I just decided, let me just keep on pursuing this dream. I knew I had more races in me. I knew I could get faster, but I was getting older. And see, the sport of track and field is a different sport than most all these other sports. Like you have a cycle, and the sponsors, they typically will want to sign you, prior to like a world championship year or an Olympic year. So if you're running fast outside of those prior years, it's hard for you to essentially put yourself in a position to be, looked at to get a sponsor. So I was like a working athlete. Typically, I would be, most athletes, if they don't have a true plan, with my degrees, I ended up becoming a personal trainer. And I knew that, it was a simple, easy schedule. It allowed me to train, allowed me to compete, but the money was so up and down that it wasn't really, it wasn't the life that I wanted. And I knew that I wanted something more out of life. I was always good with numbers. And coming back from Beijing, that was I was I was the strongest. I was older, but I was the strongest I was, the fastest I was. But I went to the Olympics and I kind of blew it up. Didn't really have a good race. And I was kind of discouraged completely. And again, I always had numbers in my mind. I had been doing taxes prior to that, the old school way, because my aunt taught me how to do the taxes. Old school, like by the paper way, not by software. And I met a gentleman who one year he was driving a Honda Accord and the next year he was driving a Bentley. So I was like, I need you to teach me. And so he taught me. I started my own business. Just really, got certified, started my own business. And my first year we did $500,000. So it's like, it's crazy that, I struggled so long as a personal trainer that I bypassed going into corporate America because I had a couple offers to go with my degree to different corporations. But, I graduated in 2000. When I started looking for jobs, it was 2008. The information I learned in 2000 was obsolete. So I would have to start all the way over. And I didn't want to be the old guy with these young guys. You know what I mean? And so it just made me, entrepreneurship was something I already knew, didn't really understand the terminology. And like I tell people all the time, entrepreneurship is something that I wish for everybody, but I don't wish on anybody because it's a tough life, but it's a very fulfilling and rewarding life if you run it correctly.
Yeah. And I know we've talked about that in the past. That's crazy. It's always crazy when you make that shift into what people do want,
Yeah.
as opposed to what they don't really care for from you. And
Yeah.
it's really specifically from you, because somebody else, it might work. That's why everybody has like their own little journey, no
Yeah.
matter what. So I know I thought I was going to come at things a certain way, and like people are like, not what we want from you. And so then you have those, just like how you're talking about that breakout year, you find out what people want from you. You're like, okay, got it. And you did pledge. What fraternity did you pledge, man?
The only fraternity that's out, man. Really, the only one that I even know that's out. The only one. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It's one of those things that when you talk about frat, as you get older in life, you got to understand, like, we're all, just really trying to bond and have brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
I am an Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated brother, ice cold brother. You know what I'm saying?
So people who see that will be able to relate. Let's get into some nitty gritty, man.
Yes.
This all came about because, well, first of all, we've already worked together.
Yeah.
And you need to take the funding that to get those offers. But while I was complaining about this 50% basically tax rate that Biden wants to put on stock portfolios. And the funny thing is, people think it won't apply to them because it says only people who make $400,000 a year or more. Okay, like, I mean, it's not just people like us it applies to. If you have a portfolio and you're going to cash out that portfolio, it should be more than 400,000 if you're trying to retire.
Right.
If you're trying to get some stuff done, you've been holding stocks, you've been holding options for years. You'll have that 400, so it's going to apply to you. So would you want someone taking half of your portfolio and you came up from zero, et cetera, even if you didn't, I mean, you still don't want somebody to take that for your portfolio.
Right.
And so I was talking about that, and I was letting my mind be known about that. And I said, look, man, is there a way around this? You answered pretty quickly. Like, you're like, oh, well, all you have to do is
yes. So what people don't understand, and this is just across the board,
mm-hmm.
we all have a silent partner that we work with. We all, whether you work as a W-2 employee or you're an independent contractor, self-employed, we all have this silent partner that we never really, think about. But the more money you make, you start looking at, like, this silent partner is more vocal than anything, which is the IRS, mm-hmm. Uncle Sam. And so you try to figure out all the types of strategies that are out there that can actually bypass taxation, the creative strategies have nothing to do with tax evasion. So we're not talking about tax evasion. We're talking about paying your fair share, but maneuvering within the tax code that will allow you to benefit the highest way or the best way. And so one thing I did share with you was depreciation. Not a lot of people take depreciation when it comes to any of their assets. And that's one way that will reduce any crazy tax obligation that you have. And then the biggest thing that I'm really preaching right now is doing a strategic rollout out of any qualified account, and putting it into a life insurance policy. And the life insurance play is a play that it's been around since I've been a kid. I think it came about around 1980. I'm a 70s baby. So it's been around for years. I mean, they've evolved. It's been shifting as far as how much can be funded, what exactly can be funded. And it's still one of the best places to place your money, where it's safe, it grows, tax deferred, it's liquid without any penalties. And when you take distribution, it's tax free. So there is no cap on it. it has to be structured correctly within a life insurance policy. But across the board, it's one of the best places long term to have your money there.
Okay. Now, before we jump all the way into life, how do you wiggle out of this Biden shit? And I remember one of the things we talked about was the structure of your corporation.
Yep.
Pass through versus non-pass through entities. Can we get into that a little bit, and how you can execute on that using a pass through entity?
So I'll just speak on, my actual client that had a really great year in the stock market. But he also had a business that I believe the numbers, if I recall the numbers, he had over $20,000 in losses because he had like a farm, and he had to clear the land on the farm, and it's, I guess, very expensive to clear land. But he also had a $50,000 or $60,000 growth in the market that year. So his tax, and plus he was already a high six-figure earner, a little under 300,000 W-2 guy. So he was already, taxed through the roof on his W-2. Now, when you're talking about the growth of his portfolio, and this guy was, his 401k is sitting over $1 million. So he's actively growing his 401k. And he was going to have about a $40,000 tax bill, which doesn't matter how much money you make. Nobody wants to fork over $40,000. Doesn't make any sense, because like when you pay your taxes, it just takes away from your profit, right? But it's the right thing to do, pay your taxes. So the idea was his business losses offset his market gains. And so we made sure that we took all the losses, because he paid for the people, he paid for the machines, he paid for this, he paid for that, all of this out of his, it came from the business. I mean, we structured it where it's an S corp. The profit or loss reports on him. He's the president, the owner of the company. And so the actual S corp doesn't pay any taxes, but the profit or loss is reported on his tax return, and the loss offset his gains. And so instead of having a crazy tax bill, we think he had like a $8,000 or $9,000 tax bill, which he could stomach. I mean, as opposed to a 5-figure tax bill. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Now this is critical here, because I want people to catch this. And so you're an expert, so you catch it right away. But what I want people to catch is, even though the stock portfolio gains were on his person, the business losses still offset his personal tax obligation on his stock gains, because because that's a pass-through entity.
Correct.
And so that is critical, because there's structures that you can use for different strategies and different reasons. Yeah. And I'm sure that might help somebody make a better decision on what they want to do moving forward.
Right.
As far as the obligations. Now, I take it can operate that way as far as on any pass-through entity, such as like a LLC.
Right.
And then so that's big, because this is going to be, if that goes through, I don't know if it has already, but if that goes through, this is going to be something that people are really going to have help with.
Right.
And so
entity structure is huge. Tax filing is huge. It's not something that you just want to play with. Again, if you're funding or if you're growing your portfolio and you want to diversify it, you definitely have to have proper structures in place. And I know some of the people we talked about, again, it's not evasion. Listen, the tax code was written for small business, typically and historically. So you find all of the high level deductions that you can utilize, that applies to your business, and use those, those deductions and those write-off strategies. So I mean, it's not difficult to to structure it. It's just now you have to work within those boundaries. And so
Right.
where people don't really think, like, every one of these people that are getting in trouble with the IRS and not paying taxes is because their structure wasn't put in place properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, most people that get paid a lot of money, the reporting entity that gave that person the money, whether it's a portfolio, whether it's an option, whether it's something, will report that they gave you the money, right? Nobody's just not going to report they gave you the money. Your job is to report how that money came in, report how that money was used, and then if it makes sense, pay taxes on a portion of that money.
Right. We're going to get into it. I like how you phrase that. If it makes sense, pay taxes on a portion of the money, because maybe I'll just touch on it right now before we move out of the topic is how often, okay, I see guys, because, you know, we do funding and whatnot. So I see guys that write everything off, right? And then, which is bad for funding, but how long can you do that? And what do you typically need to do to make sure you don't get caught up in this whole thing of writing everything off? Is there a point where you need to be reporting what's reasonable? And when is that?
Right. So there is a, like, hypothetical. It's no, you know, you can write it off for 20 years, but does it make sense? And do you want to have that unnecessary, you know, you can't be in business long term and not make profit.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. For one, it caught a lot of people with the pandemic because a lot of people had been running their business mom and pop. And so when the PPP came around and said, hey, let's pull your payroll documents, let's see your employees, people were paying their employees. I mean, I have a client that pays his employees directly, right? Not even under the table, but directly, but then doesn't report it. He reports, you know, one employee, which is himself, which, you know what I mean? And I'm like, so come the paycheck protection and you had to provide these documents, it caught a lot of people, you know, their structure of their business was not up to speed. And so to your point about the funding and about the writing off, I mean, in business, you have to find the strategy that works for you. And so writing off all of your profits so that you have no tax obligation is just not good for business, because unless you want to love this business and this is going to be your baby for the end, every business is built to sell. So how do you sell a business that shows no profit? You know what I mean? And so you want to be able to at least show a little bit of profit. Paying taxes is just part of being an American, unfortunately and fortunately. So figure it out, make it work, and make it make sense within your business, and find a strategy that's going to fund your tax bill. And that just becomes your tax bill strategy. You know what I'm saying? Where these people, you know, I have a client of mine. He pays his taxes at the end of the year, every year. Like, he always waits to the very end and cuts a 6-figure check. And I'm like, Doc, why do you wait? Why don't you pay quarterly? And because his business is an up and down business, he can't afford, you know, because he has to cover payroll, right? He has like 75 employees that he has to fund. And a couple of times he'll fund those things out of his personal savings account. So when it comes to taxes, he waits until the very end, because towards the end of the year, he gets a big windfall of funding. And so, or his money comes in, I guess the reimbursements from the insurance comes in towards the end of the year. So then he takes that income and then pays the tax bill. So it always has to make sense for the individual. But one thing that I've learned over the years is, you know, paying taxes is something that you have to put it into your business practice. And that just becomes an expense. And it has to be a part of your life. Like, it's just a part of the business. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that you can't bypass it. You know, it's just learn to pay yourself different. Learn to run everything through your business. Let it all work itself out. So like, a lot of the things are business expenses, but when it comes to paying taxes, pay the taxes. just the necessary taxes, not the overpayment of taxes.
Right. You're working within the law.
Yeah.
And there's so much you can do within the law.
Correct. It's really not that difficult. I mean, we just had a very high level influential person who has for years been working within the frameworks of the law, and all of his people have been working within the frameworks of the law. And he didn't create the law, right? The law was there before him, and it's not like he knew it. Somebody educated him and advised him, and he just took it to the next level. And so if he can do it, and he's not the only one, why can't we all tap into it? You know what I'm saying? And so it's not that there's nothing wrong with bankrupting a business, because it just doesn't work. We just don't know as a culture and as a people, how do you actually bankrupt a business where you don't have any of the obligations from the business? Well, as long as you have the right people in your corner that knows that part of the law, you do it. And then you move on to the next one. You don't like, okay, well, I don't want to deal with this, I'm just going to open up another entity. Like, you got to close one chapter to open up another chapter. So that's, it's in the law. So if you follow the law, it's like you follow the law, it will work in your favor. When you try to bypass the law, that's when it comes to get you, because the law is the law, but within every law, there's a loophole. And as long as you find that, that loophole within the law, you can just touch on it. And so most people don't really know the full law. I'm not saying I know law. I know enough about taxes to understand that we can work within it to make it work. So that's kind of why, I'm big on this life insurance.
Yeah. Now let's jump into this, man.
Yeah.
So we touched on tax for a while, and I'm sure people are going to want to reach out about that, and we'll set up some things for them to reach out to you. And then I'm sure after they hear this now. So, and the first thing we got into was, you're like, look, Dave, listen, man, I just talked to a young cat, okay, makes a good living for himself. Makes, what was it, 200, 250?
Like 250 on average. So he's averaging 250.
As a 25-year-old, right? And when I was 25, I was dead broke. So Congratulations to him. Okay. So 25 years old, making 250,000, already thinking smart.
Correct.
Setting it up so he can retire at what, 50? How did he do this? How does this work?
So
that's just with this scenario.
Right. So essentially he's 25. He's a homeowner, which is huge. You know what I'm saying? I got the numbers specifically so I could
Good.
So essentially, we wrote a $2 million life insurance policy for him, right? He's putting away $20,000 a year, which is around $1,667 a month, right? He's going to put $20,000 a year for 20 years. His all-in contribution is $400,000. This is after-tax dollars that he put into a life insurance policy, an index universal life policy. We'll get into that because, this is not a whole life policy. This is not a variable universal life policy, and it's not a guaranteed universal life policy. It's an index. There's a difference. And then, you have this policy kind of trending like a pension. So you pay for it and you start taking distributions like you would take distributions from your qualified account, which would be 65 or 66. Well, I ran it from 66. So you contribute, he's going to contribute for 20 years, 25 to 45, then doesn't do any more contribution. At age 66, check this out. He's going to get paid out tax-free $267,667 a year from 66 to the day he dies. He already told us that his grandparents, lived well into their late 80s and I think 91. So we ran it from 66 to 90. That shows that should that happen, he lives to 90, he would have taken out tax-free $6.6 million. Tax-free. He dies at 90, there's still a death benefit of over $800,000 that his beneficiaries are going to receive. So when you talk about living in death benefits, he put in 400,000, he gets out like $7.4 million.
Wow.
Tax-free, brother.
Say it one more time. So he puts in 400. He puts in 400,000.
Puts in 400,000.
And then he gets out $7.4 million.
Yes.
It's a hell of a return.
You can't beat that. And so, you know, it's like, how is that possible? How does that work? Well, the index universal life policy essentially trends. It's a life insurance policy that benefits from the growth of the market, but doesn't participate in any of the volatility of the market. And so it's off of the S&P 500, an index of the S&P 500. So you'll have people saying, and I got into a back and forth with a financial advisor, that, you know, not participating in the full growth of the market will hurt your investment, right? So check this out. Got some more research for you.
And that, just to clarify too, that payout begins at 66 for him?
Yeah. So that, again, this is a structure, right? It can, yes. You can't take at age 66, you cannot take the full $7 million.
No. But it starts coming out.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
and do you design what age you start taking it, or is that up to?
So we just wrote it. You know, I wrote it. When I say we, I'm just talking about my partners and I, but it's me. I'm the agent that wrote it. Mm-hmm. You design it so it can fit where you have some other qualified money that when you start taking distribution, you're going to get taxed on that. So it's to offset the tax dollars that you already have to take out, because he's actually maxing out his 401k. Mm-hmm. So, and he has, you know, an IRA as well, but he's going to get to a place where he can't contribute to an IRA because of his income. So he has like what they call a backdoor Roth, but he has some places that when money starts coming out, he's going to pay taxes on it. So we have a vehicle that when you start taking distributions and you pay taxes, you're going to have something coming out that's going to be tax free. But you can structure that where he doesn't have to wait until 66, he can get it at 50. It'll just be a smaller number because it took a little less time to compound. You're giving it 20 years of compounding. So you contribute for 20 years, you sit it for 20 years, it's compounding for 20 years because it's compounding interest over time.
Right. So you make the decision based on how much you'd like to get paid. Would you like to pay a little more, a little less, based on how it's compounding over that time. So technically you could have started it earlier if you wanted to.
Correct.
It's just up to him.
There's a cap on how much you can earn to be able to qualify for the IRA. And then the backdoor just means they take your money out, they put it into another fund that then again turns around and funds the IRA. But there's fees associated. And so when I'm talking to these clients and I say, your financial advisor wants you to do what? Well, in my mind, it's just fee. Listen, I'm not taking money away from anybody. If that's how you feed your family, I understand. Just don't knock my process, because I'm not taking no money out of what you're explaining to your client. We're telling people you should take, anywhere from 5 to 10% of your gross income and invest it into something safe. It's a safe investment. It grows tax deferred, is actually liquid, and it's tax free off of distribution. So nothing that's out there can actually compete with this right here. And that's
what if because I'm assuming, it's growing because of the market is growing. Now, what if the market crashes?
So that's a great question. So let me give you some historical data. So from the last 20 years of the market, from 2000 to 2020, the average S&P 500, the average index of the S&P 500 was a 20-year average was only 5.31%. That took into consideration the 39% loss in 2008. You had and then you had another loss in 2001, 2002, where it was 13% loss and 19% loss. So those 3 years brought your full average down, right? Mm-hmm. In the insurance metric, the actual average of 20 years is 8.04%. So when the market goes up, we're capped in this particular carrier. This carrier that I'm using, we're capped at 13.5%. But when the market goes down, or the market has no gain or has a loss, we still credit the account at 0.25%. So you're still going to get a 0.25% credit, but you're not going to, like when the market went up, the index was 25.35% from start of year 2018 to the end of the year 2019. You only got 13.5% credited interest. But those years that you had negative in the market, you're still getting a 0.25%.
Right.
So you're not losing, you just don't get the crazy gain, but it offsets because the crazy gains get offset by the crazy losses. So the market volatility, listen, again, go and make the money in the market, but understand that the insurance space is a safe space.
Right. So you could you could have both things running. You can have some of your money,
correct,
funding an excellent strategy and policy like for the young man, and then have other money in the market. But you're setting your life up over here like risk free. And then you got this over here. Yeah.
You got to understand diversity. When I first started my business years ago, I met a gentleman that had 53 streams of income. He was older. He was in his 60s. But he said that when stocks are up, gold is down. Like when stocks are down, gold is up, right? When gold is down, oil is up. When oil is down, the bonds are. He basically had a win for a loss all across the board. And then he said, as long as you can diversify yourself properly, you won't get affected by the ups and downs of life. And I'm like, man, but you're like 65. You know what I mean? Like you're like in your 60s and you came from a little bit of money. So it's not that you have to come from something. It's just take some wise counsel, take some great advice. I think what's trending right now is getting the bag. But what people are not talking about is your silent partner. Like there's a silent partner that we all have to talk about that nobody wants to talk about. And that's why the IRS is going after the little people, because now you're making all this money. It's reportable income because it's going through a processor. You're getting these 1099s probably at the end of the year from the growth of your market, the growth. And if you took some of your money, you took possession of some of your money, you're going to pay taxes. One of the things that you want to focus on is, how do I offset my taxes? The easiest way to offset your taxes is start a small business. That's the easiest way, right? Complex way is start creating strategies. Now, I don't want to just have a small business. I want to have a legitimate business with some structure. So then the LLC is going to be filed as an S Corp. Does it make sense to have an S Corp or a C Corp? It just depends on what you want to do and how you want to do it. But get with a good financial planner, get with a good, accountant that knows strategy, and let us work it out. Because at the end of the day, it's a long play. Like this is a long play. It's not a short play. The GameStop or this crypto that crypto, man, what's going to happen is, because I have a client that he has a house called Bitcoin Mansion, because he made money he made money with crypto in the past, pulled money out, bought a house, made sense. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to taxes, you have to you're going to have to absorb some of those things. And that's just the cost of doing business. It's the cost of being, a responsible citizen of the United States of America. Now,
there's a lot of stuff that goes around about infinite banking.
Okay.
Have you heard of infinite banking, and how does this differ from infinite banking? And is it better or is it worse?
So I'll tell you the honest to God truth. I haven't got into the infinite banking play. I'm not exactly sure what their strategy is. Mm-hmm. If I have an idea, if it has something to do with whole life is a little different than index universal life. I'm not really a big proponent of whole life because I always like an end, right? I like to see an end at some point. And whole life is insurance that you pay for your whole life. And at some point you want to stop paying, you want to start reaping. I think the infinite banking is you're essentially creating your own pool of money, which is just like this index universal life policy where you can fund everything within your own insurance policy. So as it builds cash value, you can take a loan against it. It's your money. You don't have to pay it back. It just reduces your death benefit at the end of the policy. And when you pay it back, you're just putting that money back into your own pool of money. So I don't know how they teach infinite banking, but it probably in my mind would think it's just utilizing your own money, and you can fund these things. Listen, that guy's taking 20 years to fund it, 400,000. But if we wanted to fund 400,000 a lot sooner, we could do it in 4 years in one day. So you can fund something in 5 years. It just has to make sense. You basically have to buy the least amount of insurance for your premium that you're gonna put out. So in his case, $20,000 a year, the least amount of insurance that we could buy to keep it classified as insurance was a $2 million policy. Now that $20,000 insurance, he could have gotten $4 or $5 million of life insurance. But because we're bringing it down to the least amount of insurance that's required by law, it's only $2 million. Because the cost of insurance is so low, the rest of the money is going into the accumulation account and growing over time. And the reason why you're able to benefit from the getting tax-free distributions is because of tax code 7702. So tax code 7702 essentially says that all proceeds from a life insurance policy is tax-free. So when he puts in his 400,000 and it grows, when he starts taking out that 267 a year, he's essentially getting an advance of his death benefit. So the advance of the death benefit gives you section 7702, free distributions of life insurance. Free distribution of your death benefit. You're just getting an advance of that. And because he overfunded his life insurance policy, overfunded it, that means he has, within that insurance policy, almost $7 million waiting for him.
So it's, it sounds pretty similar, really.
Yeah.
I'll say, and then, in the aspect of you can borrow against your policy, just like we talk about in infinite banking. That's what I'm hearing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so honestly, it sounds really similar. So that's interesting.
So
I guess we have to look at the numbers.
Yeah. So not to cut you off. So one thing that you want to understand with life insurance is life insurance is these policies are structured similar to how when you purchase a house. When you purchase a house, a 30-year mortgage, the majority of the interest is put into the first 15 years of the policy your mortgage.
Yes, of the mortgage.
In insurance, your first 10 years is all front loaded with the cost of insurance. So when he puts in $20,000 year one, he'll have less in his cash value. So in year one, he puts in $20,000, and he puts in $20,000 and he has $14,000 actually in the account. That's year one. But by year 10, which he would have put in 200,000, he would have 197,000. So he put in 200, he has 197,000. But year 11, it starts going where now year 11, he put in another 20,000. So he's put in 220,000, but the cash value is 230,000. And then when he puts in the second year, the other 20,000, instead of it just being 240,000, it's 265,000. So it starts growing. It catches up. So the more money as you start putting more money in, the cost of insurance goes down, and now the cash value grows. So a lot of the people who are against insurance are saying the cost of insurance is too much. So what I come back and say is, which one would you rather pay? The cost of insurance or your tax consequence when you would take out your taxes from that qualified account? You know what I'm saying? So we're talking about in order to get $7 million out of a 401k tax free, there's no way to take 400,000, put it into a qualified account over the course of 30 years, making it into $7 million. It's not possible, right? So when you're thinking, would I rather pay insurance fees or a tax on my money? It's always going to be, the fees are a lot cheaper than the taxes.
Right. So I wanted to touch on that one more time, because I remember, now we talked about this in the past, and I was trying to make it add up in my mind, and you explained it to me perfectly, is that you're putting your money in after, this is technically after tax money.
Correct.
Or is it or it's after tax? Correct.
So the world, listen, if you gave the world this option, just a regular person, and my kids would know this answer. Would you rather pay taxes on seeds or the harvest? Right?
That's right.
And some people are like, I want to pay tax on the harvest. Listen, we're talking about, I just gave you this land, this land, and I said you have to sow seeds or plant seeds into this land. And I'm giving you, all these acres of land, and you know that these trees are going to be worth something, and they're going to be apple trees and orange trees and all these other trees, and people are going to buy, the timber and all that stuff. But right now it's just land. Would you rather pay taxes after the land grows or before the land grows, just off of the seeds? And when you put it to somebody like that, it's like, I want to pay taxes on the seeds. Of course, right. Jayson. Well, what are you doing right now, bypassing the seed tax to wait to pay for the harvest tax? Your 401k is tax deferred. So I can write off that income so that, I have less income because it's tax deferred. Right.
Also, the way you explained it to me before was cool in that as that policy is growing, you're basically getting that tax money back.
Yeah.
Essentially, so you put it in there, and it's like basically just coming back to you over time at a date that you select.
Yes.
It's crazy. So people can really make sure that they create wealth in this generation just by sacrificing. Because as guys that do well for ourselves, we waste money on accident. You know what I mean?
Right.
that could be put toward. It's only, if you're thinking about it, it's really not that much for the example that you gave. I think the example was 1,000. What was it? 1,300?
Yeah, 1,600.
1,600 a month. We're gonna spend 1,600 anyway. So you might as well just take the 16 and just boom. Just go ahead and put it right over it. I would say even if you're making less, just make sure you make the room to make yourself rich in the future. I mean, why not? It's like, hey, I'm going to guaranteed make myself rich right. at X, Y, and Z time. I mean, that's a blessing to be able to guarantee yourself wealth at some period of your life because you decide to make the choice. It's crazy.
Correct. So you want to think about it as like an investment and not an expense. Anytime we think about an investment, we always think about you know, how long it will take for that money to grow. Investment takes time. That's just the nature of it. You know, you invest in your own self, you have to learn the knowledge. You're not going to learn it overnight. So when you pay for that course, or you pay for that, you know, that book, or you go to school, you're learning over time. That's what an investment is. And so that's what we look with life insurance is it's not the only one. It's just a good one, and it's a better one, but diversifying yourself. But understand it's an investment. So it's a long-term play. And listen, most people, I've been in this business long enough where I've seen people pass away. And I've seen people in their 60s not have a true retirement fund in their 60s. So I tell them what their retirement plan is to keep working. That's your plan, because you didn't plan correctly. And there's more 65 and older people that are less well off still working than there are not. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's just because they didn't plan accordingly. And then when they pass on, the burden is left to their family to take over, to bury them or to cremate them, to deal with their assets, whatever they have. Like that's just like an irresponsible thing as an adult to put that on somebody else. So if we could think about somebody other than ourselves, yes, if you have time, work on it, work diligently to live for tomorrow, funding your future, right? Fund your future, but then guarantee your kids have it better than you.
Yep.
You know, I don't have any kids. Okay. Guarantee somebody in your life to have a better life than you did. You know what I mean? And that's generational. And this is how it happens through insurance. So
yeah. And I like to highlight that it can also be selfish. Let it be selfish. Yeah. I'm going to get a guaranteed six-figure plus income after the age of 50, period. Let it be selfish. That's fine. Because we think that 50 never comes, but it actually does come. I know guys my age probably think that 50 will never show up. Oh, it shows up. And you'd be like, dang, I still feel young. But you could have felt young and rich too if you just had set it up prior. So definitely, man.
And the strategy, not to cut you off, man, it's not the end all be all. It's one of. So when you talk strategies, man, you know, the idea is listen, you probably have done it like me. Jump into this venture, jump into a venture because you're looking for the return. Now, I made a comment, right, that you said was a banger, right? When the world goes to hell, who do they always rely on? They always go to the insurance companies. The insurance companies are the backbones of America. When it hits the fan, the government is the government. They print money.
I got to tell you how you phrased it to me. So when you phrased it to me, you said, when everything goes to hell, like when everything falls, you know, like 2008, what's left? What's still left?
Yeah.
That's basically how you said it. It was like, there's like insurance. It's like, it's one of the only things where it's like, just like how you explained, everything could go to hell, but you're still getting, what was it, 0.25% or
0.25%. Still getting a return.
And everything else is reversing. So I mean, the example is within the policy itself. Yes. But it's interesting to think about. Yeah, when everything goes to hell, everything falls. Well, there's still insurance.
You're gonna always, like, when you run into a problem, you go to the insurance company, right? Because the insurance company is the most liquid and has the most assets.
Right.
And when the crash happened in 2008, I think 400 banks went out of business. I think one insurance company just got bought up by another insurance company, but no insurance company went out of business. You know, they're billions and billions in assets. It's like, and they have liquid. So,
So yeah, with that said, man, I'm going to ask you two more quick questions.
Okay.
One is, and just so people understand, what is the difference between tax planning and tax prep?
Oh man, it's like night and day, right? So tax prep is tax preparation. You bring your tax documents to your accountant or CPA, and they prepare your taxes. They really just plug in the data. They don't really go deep into any type of strategies. They may ask you some questions. Typically, what I would ask is, do you plan to buy a house in the next 2 years? If that answer is no, then we're looking for all the creative ways to write off as much of uh, their expenses if they have any, so that they don't owe any crazy amount of taxes. But most times, most people are looking for a refund. Tax planning is planning in advance the year and 2 years out, really, on how you are going to move as a worker, right, as well as a small business owner, because some of the strategies that you have to employ requires you to contribute differently. And when you contribute differently, that is a taxable or a tax deduction that we can capture and we can keep and report that come tax time. So it's putting a strategy and a plan in place. And then, we come and we game plan, and then the business owner or small business or high net worth person, they put that strategy in place. And so it's kind of how I've shifted my business. It allows me now to look in depth to these 401ks, looking at your IRA play. Are you overfunding your 401k? Doesn't make sense to even, take a 401k. Doesn't make sense to put money in an IRA where you're capped at $6,000 a year. It's locked up to your 59 and a half. I mean, you're 29 and you're 30, and you do not want to retire at 65. You want to retire at 50 or 55, and you don't want to be, to the mold of what the world is out right now. We plan for that. And if you plan properly, listen, there's no surprises. When the world goes up and goes down, we've already planned for that. So the planning aspect, and listen, I'm not taking nothing away from financial planners or any of these financial advisors. I'm just playing on taxes. So these advisors cannot tell you about taxes unless they're a tax advisor. If they're a financial planner, they're going to tell you about some strategies, but they cannot advise you on taxes. Mm-hmm. They can't. And then most of them don't write insurance. So they're not going to tell you about the insurance play, right? Mm-hmm. Because their job is they're working for a corporation. Their corporation is heavy into this product or heavy into this strategy. That's where they're pushing you. I'm fiduciary for my client. I'm contracted by 15 and counting carriers. So I'm not obligated to put you into one strategy directly. I'm giving you what works for you, what's the best for you. And from there, we work a plan and we make adjustments. Life happens, we make the adjustment.
Yep. 2 examples that you gave me, both of them were killer examples. One was how to set up a child, make a child a millionaire guaranteed. You're starting out from them, they're a baby, and making them basically a millionaire by 30 or something like that? Can you explain how you do that again? So our audience can understand.
It's just within the life insurance. I mean, you can write a child, after they're 15 days old, you can put a policy on a child, and mm-hmm. essentially the parent is the owner of the policy. The child is the insured. The parent needs to have at least 2 times what the insurance is of the child, because that's just the insurance business. You can't over insure your own child because of the safety. It's not.
You said it needs to have 2 times. What's that?
Yeah. So if your child has $1 million, you have to have $3 million of coverage. Because the insurance carriers want to make sure you don't have any ulterior motive to insure your kid. It's crazy to think, but it's like that, and then you write the policy the same way. You fund it just like you'd fund anything else. But you're essentially ensuring that your kids will have like this carrier that I'm working with, they have what's called a guaranteed lifetime income rider. So when you turn on that income, it will pay that same amount of money each month until the policy owner passes away. So that means that if you exhaust all of your cash value in the policy, it will still keep on funding well into the policy being zero because you have a guaranteed income rider. You follow me? So compounded over time, let's just say, you're an affluent, couple, and you want to put away, like this guy, $1,600 a month for your baby. Your baby will be a millionaire probably by 25. By 25, not just being born to this couple. And the couple didn't even have to leave them anything, just by investing and allowing it to grow. And we're talking about 18 years of doing that. Right. Right. So just imagine, so my business partner, it's crazy. He's 30, right? He's 30. He makes a little bit more than I do. Well, a lot more than I do. He's putting away $10,000 a month for 20 years. No, not for 20 years. Is it 20 years? No, it's for 10 years. It's 10 years. He's only putting away 1.2 million. It sounds crazy when I think, I'm just talking really simple.
So he's putting away $10,000 a month for 10 years.
Correct. Okay. So that's going to be 1.2 million. So at age 40, no more contribution. At age 45, he's taking out $2 million out of the policy, tax-free. He's just doing a one-time distribution. He has it structured this way: a one-time distribution at age 45. At age 50, listen to me, at age 50, he's taking out every year $567,000 a year until he dies. 50, and he has a grandma that's 92, still living. So from 50 to he's quote unquote, knock on wood, he's guaranteed 40 years because his grandma's still alive, his dad is still alive. As long as he has a safe life, $500,000 a year for the next 30, guaranteed 30 to 40 years because of his $1.2 million investment. And mind you, he took out $2 million already. That comes out to he gets a total about 1.2 million gave him about 15 or so, $16 million. Tax-free, doesn't have to report it to the IRS. Because remember now, section 7702 says you get your proceeds out of a life insurance policy tax-free. So he's getting an advance. He's getting an advance on his insurance death benefit. So, brother, and that's a 30-year-old. Now he's making great money to be able to put away $10,000 a month. But just imagine putting away a little less, but putting that on autopilot. You know what I'm saying? Because you're making $50,000 a month, or you're making $100,000 a month. Everybody, a lot of these gurus are talking about making $100,000 a month. Where are you putting that money? You make $100,000 a month. Where are you putting that money? Are you living for today? Or are you living for tomorrow? If you have young kids, you would love to live for tomorrow because you want your kids to have a better life than you. And so, yes, we can't predict the future. We do know that the insurance company is still going to be here. So you know what I mean? We can't predict taxes. Taxes will go up, but we know that life insurance is paid out tax-free. You're not changing that because the law of large numbers says they're paying out less death benefits than they are taking in premium. That's just across the board. You follow me? So that's almost the insurance play. The insurance play is
it's catching on. People are catching on.
Yeah, but not enough.
Not
Because
enough.
it doesn't seem real, but it takes time, right? But you're
People
investing
think that
in the market. You're
people
investing
think
in the
that
market.
10 years is never going to come.
Right.
They
10
think that
years,
20
like,
years is never going to come. They think that 30 years is never going to come.
listen,
I know that it comes.
my son, I only have 5 more summers with my son before he goes off to college. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about 5 more summers, it's like the last 2 summers, he's a junior. Dad, I want to hang out with my girlfriend, my friends. Then the summer before his senior year, he ain't hanging with mom and dad. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, before you know it, time goes by. And what are you doing with your time? Nothing against making the money, but how are you going to account for your silent partner? That's my biggest thing. Pay your silent partner, but not too much. If it's 50%, I mean, listen, when my mom retired, when she first took her distribution, she was taxed at 28%. Never in her working career was she taxed at that level. She was in tears when she took her first distribution. But she said she didn't know any other way, because that's the sale. Listen, put your money away. Your taxes are going to be lower. You're going to be a lower tax bracket. You would have paid off your house in 30 years or 40 years. But historically, taxes have gone up. So we are pretty confident that taxes in 30 years are going to be higher than they are now. Pay your taxes, but then have something that's like, I know I'm paying my taxes on this money. I know I'm going to get hit on this taxes, but I have this $1 million stacking over here, and it could go as big as you want. Again, it's just how much insurance. And, you know, we have these carriers that have simple issue where there's no medical, no blood, no urine. But when you start getting over $3 million, $4 million policies, they're going to want to verify your income. And they're going to want to take your blood, because they don't want you to over-insure yourself and then do something to yourself. So there's usually like a 2-year window, a 2-year suicide window, right? So that if you get all this life insurance, you're not trying to give the money to your family, like, you know, tap out, because that's just, you know, mental health is huge. But it's been an insurance staple for years. You're not going to pay out the death benefit within 2 years if somebody kills himself. So there's a whole, again, this is a play. When we're talking about plays, right? So for the non-lingo people, it's the portfolio, diversifying your portfolio. So I'm not saying the insurance play is the only play to have and take all your money out of qualified accounts and put it into insurance. I'm saying participate over there, but then sit over here. And this is what you're going to stand on strong. This is going to go up and down. It's going to get your heart up, and it's going to go down. But over here, this is like the better alternative to your municipal bonds. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
and this is not foreign, because I remember the last thing I was going to say is that you gave me some examples of, you know, these coaches.
Correct. So it's called deferred compensation. So, you know, 2 coaches that are very famous, Jim Harbaugh with University of Michigan, and Dabo Swinney for the University of Clemson University. They both have, and they're not the only 2, they're just the ones that didn't mind the story being run on them, that they have what's called deferred compensation. So the school is essentially funding a life insurance policy in their name that when they retire and they start taking distributions, that's how they're compensated for their being a coach. And so it's like, I have my money now, and then I have, how much is it? Okay, that money, well, it starts paying you out. It's going to pay you out tax-free. As long as you live X amount of years, this is the amount of money you're going to get. And then if you don't live those amount of years, this is the amount of money your family will get. To most savvy individuals, that's a good play. And so the IUL space has been used for plenty of years. It's just one of those things where our culture doesn't really understand it. And the whole life thing, again, I'm not knocking whole life, but I could tell you that the whole life won't compare apples to apples with this right here when we're talking about compounding interest and coming to an end where you don't have to pay all for your whole life. You pay for a portion, the way it's written. you pay for a portion of time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and then you stop paying. And then you take distribution.
Man.
I have a friend, he's big into network marketing. He's huge in network marketing. He's doing like $1 million a month. Mm-hmm. Like, I wanted to write him a policy. Anything over 3 million, we would have had to check his income. He would have had to provide income. And like, one of the things, he was a guy that was making no money. Like, I was making more money than him. He's pushed really hard into this space, and now he's making way more than I am. And when he called me up to write him a policy, it's very private now. So he was like, do I have to show my tax returns? Do I have to show my income? And I was like, let me find out what you can write, without showing your income. And it's like right under $3 million that we don't have to show income. But I'm like, dude, you make all this money, like, but I understand. So he has
because you got to take the tax hit. That like some people won't want to take that tax hit that year. That strong.
But I mean, again,
can you change your policy in the future?
It depends. If it's a major change, like if like this kid is going from $20,000, he can't say, Jayson, now I'm making $450,000. Can I make it a $40,000 policy? No, you can't, because you're going to change the tax advantage. But if you like want to dump in an extra 20,000 sporadically throughout the years of the contract, you can. But you can always go write another policy and start another one with more money.
You can write another one. Okay. Yeah.
Again,
so you can have more than 2 policies at the same time.
Man, listen,
I
got 6 policies on myself and 6 on my wife and 2 on my kids right now. As I learn more and I get more money, I'm stacking. Like I live.
Because Jay, this is the problem, man. When you said that, we'll finish what you're gonna say. I didn't want to cut you off.
No. So it's one of those things where I'm living for today, but I'm also preparing for tomorrow, because my dad is 75. He'll be 76 next month. My mom is 68. They're still pushing hard, but I see their life. They're fully retired military, not wanting for anything, but their desire is not as high as mine. And when you see people that kind of look like you, around the same age, and they're so much further ahead of you, it's like, what the fuck did I do from 20 to 40 that you did differently? You know what I'm saying? And it's choices. And it's when you get paid, do you like reinvest into your business, or do you go out there and celebrate yourself and go to the Gucci store or go to whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Both. I don't like Gucci. I'll never wear Gucci though, because of the racist stuff that they did.
So I always talk about I don't like the people to say stack and save to the future. Like, come on, man. You're telling the same thing that these other people are saying. I want to live today and prepare for tomorrow. Right. So you have to have a play to be able to enjoy what you're doing daily. As well as preparing for when you want to take your foot off the gas. When you want to take your foot off the gas, bro, can you survive off of that income coming in that you didn't go out there and create? Most people can't, because retirement is just freedom of time, right? Freedom of today I came into the office straight for your interview. I didn't have to be here at 8 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get to choose and pick and choose my schedule. Most people can't. They have to be at work at 8 o'clock. So they're not free. So when they retire, they're 40 hours a week that they're living off of. They're going to get a portion of that. Now, can you survive off of that? Most people can't.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I'm just saying, play today, but prepare for tomorrow.
And this was great, man. Where can they find you?
So I have an IG. I am Jayson Jones. Jayson is spelled with a Y, Jayson Jones. My name of my company is OlympicStar Advisors. It's also
say it one more time.
I am Jayson Jones. So I am Jayson Jones. And then my name of my company is OlympicStar Advisors.
OlympicStar.
OlympicStar Advisors. OlympicStar hold on, Advisors. So that's on IG as well.
Okay, cool. This was great, man. And I think that people are going to find a lot of use with it. They're going to be hitting me up, trying to get in contact with you now. I'll direct them to you. But this was great, man. Appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the time, man. And thank you for allowing me to share my story and share the information. It's one of those things that as you know more, you want to share more, feel like more people should know about it. Only way we can get to the next level is more people come and become successful. It's not even about me taking from you or you taking from me. It's about us giving back as much as we can and sharing and enlightening other people. I think that's where we're missing. It's like a dog eat dog world. And it's like, listen, you can go into these communities like where we're looking to buy a house and you're going to be the only one there. But wouldn't it be powerful if there was more of you there? You know what I'm saying? And the only way more of you can be there is more of us have to have this information, you know? And so I like to share, brother. I like to share. I don't like to share for free, but I like to share. No,
well, you shared a lot for free. You shared a lot for free today. If people don't to see this as free game, they're crazy. So
it's a great thing, man. I'm big on like how to, right? Not like if I can show you how to, I did my job. So if I come to you and you show me how to, I feel like I got value. I can show people how to start to finish, how to get into the space on the insurance side. And then on the tax play, it's a strategy, and everybody's strategy is different. Everybody's tax business is different, and everybody's outlook on what they think their business is about is different. So let's sit and talk. And I'm just here to help. I got a good team. I got a good team behind me. I'm like the face of my own company, but I have people working strong for me. So
right.